As journalists, part of our job is requesting public records from government agencies. That information helps us support the stuff we put into our stories. Sometimes they're the basis of our stories. It's supposed to be information available to the public for transparency in government, because you have to have, you have the right to know what the government is doing. And the best way to know that is for journalists like us and others to ask for that information. And I'm sure there are many of you out there who are wondering, ooh, fascinating, requesting documents from the government. About as exciting as filing your taxes. So why should I care? Well, remember back in the middle of the pandemic when Idaho's lieutenant governor, that'd be Janice McGeachin, she decided to form a special task force to look into whether Idaho's public schools were, quote, indoctrinating students with critical race theory, Marxist or socialist teachings. But when members of Idaho's media asked to see the feedback that she was seeing that were sent in to the task force, to see what kind of stuff they were saying or they said was happening, or if they believed in the task force in the first place, McGeachin balked on providing all that information asked for in those public information requests, only providing heavily redacted copies, and only after being asked several times, claiming she was, quote, protecting whistleblowers.
We are here for one reason. I was trying to protect parents, teachers, and students who were blowing the whistle at some of the things that were happening in their communities. My goal was never to withhold public comments from the press, but to protect Idahoans from the media.
That was back when she held a press conference explaining why she was being sued, because she was eventually sued, and she lost, and she was forced to provide those documents in full to those that requested it. That's just one high-profile case. So we don't always get the records back to us that we request, and sometimes our requests get improperly denied. Sometimes agencies just want to charge a large fee to complete that request. In Idaho, the only way to fight that denial is in court, which is sometimes expensive and also time-consuming. So to help alleviate some of those costs and to help with the public getting access to that, with the process of getting access to that, there's a group of Idaho journalists that are forming a nonprofit to not only financially fight those denials in court, but to also educate those who want to know what Idaho public record laws are. Aspen Shumpert spoke to one of their board members today to hear how it will all work.
The wrestle to get access to documents that taxpayers have a right to see.
We don't have the money to pay a lawyer every single time this happens.
In Idaho, public records for all government agencies are supposed to be open to the public, unless specifically noted in Idaho's public records law.
So we're dealing with hundreds of public employees, some of whom get dozens or hundreds of public records requests a year. And they don't always fully understand the public records law.
If you feel a government agency has improperly denied a public records request, what should you do?
The vast majority of the time, when somebody improperly denies a public record for citizens or journalists, or over-redacts or overcharges, usually we can clear that up with a phone call.
Melissa Davlin, president of the Idaho's First Amendment Association, says most of the time that works, and it's how she prefers to handle it. But when you still don't get anywhere?
Unfortunately, in Idaho's law, the only recourse legally is to sue.
That takes time and resources, but now a group of Idaho journalists, including Davlin, are coming together to help out when it does. They created the nonprofit Idaho's First Amendment Association. It's set to not only educate journalists and the public through trainings and workshops on how to fight for records, but also support financially in the fight in court. Davlin is also president of the Idaho Press Club, a partner of the nonprofit who's taken government agencies to court before.
In 2019, we successfully sued Ada County to get records about the Western Idaho Fairgrounds. And then a few years ago, we sued then Lieutenant Governor Janice McGeachin over records on a task force that she was running. And in both cases, we won.
But sometimes record denials go unchallenged, and fighting a denial isn't realistic for some.
20 years ago, if your newsroom or my newsroom ran into an issue, a lot of times we had in-house counsel with the company, and we would be able to sue ourselves. We would be able to pursue that independently. That's not the case anymore. The stark reality of journalism right now is that newsrooms are shrinking, budgets are shrinking, weekly local papers are closing down. There are fewer eyes and ears on those local county commission meetings or those local school board
She says the government transparency is necessary for journalists to do their jobs and for citizens to know what their government is doing.
When we are freed up to report on what the government is doing, as opposed to spending our time fighting for records that we're entitled to, it's so much better for everybody.
The nonprofit's work is just beginning, but a more collaborative future with government agencies is what they're hoping for.
I would love to be in a place where we don't feel like we have to fight for public records, either in the courtroom or over the phone, where everybody understands that transparency benefits everybody, both government officials and the citizens of Idaho.
The formation of this nonprofit has been in the works for years. Davlin says conversations have been going on far more than 10 years, and now it's turned into reality. Brian.
Okay, so the question then is the nonprofit, who funds this? Like, where's the funding coming from? And for requests, like I think the University of Idaho is asking for like $2,500
right.
to see some of their access or their documents when it comes to the University of Phoenix deal. Like, are they gonna be able to pay for that kind of stuff?
Yeah, that's a good question. Davlin says they're still in the foundation phase of this nonprofit, so they're actively searching for grants and fundraising opportunities. If anyone wants to donate, you can do so on their website, and that will also be linked on our website later tonight.
So they've been working on it for a long time, but they still need that funding to kind of
Correct.
push it to the next level. All right, thank you very much, Aspen.